So, in last video, I talked about how it's very hard to make a full studio or vibe code a full studio. In this video, I'll talk about another software which I think is really hard and difficult to vibe code. And that software is used by industries like in the game industry and the post-production video editing industry. And all those industries require this software. And this is basically 3D surface modeling software, also called Blender. So Blender is free, so we can technically don't really have to vibe code it because it is free, and we can just use it for its own. But I want to challenge myself in this video and see how far I can go by vibe coding my own Blender version and see if the current day LLMs could actually withstand me being able to make my own Blender version. So first of all, let's talk about Blender. So what is Blender? Blender is a 3D surface tool. It's basically more than a tool. It's a software suite. Blender helps us to render 3D objects, animate 3D objects, and also add to post-production video editing. So it helps us to work around and manipulate 3D objects and surfaces and see and apply physics to them as well. So we can add rigid bodies, we could have fluid dynamics, we could also have like fire animations, we could also have cloth animations, all those things. And all those things require a lot of work. So Blender is not just a one thing, right? You could help us to model, to texturize, and to even render all those things, right? So Blender has multiple properties. So the first thing, it is a render engine. So this render engine is really good. It uses Eve render engine and also has cycles. They help us to render our 3D objects. So rendering is really hard in general. So we have hardware rendering, which is one of the better ways of doing things. So we have GPU accelerated, or we have CPU rendering. And GPU rendering is way better because GPUs are made to render 3D objects, right? Well, CPUs are a bit different in the way they're structured. So just handing off our software and making GPUs work with the software is also another struggle. So that part's also really hard. And not just that, but the physics engine of Blender is also really good. So working with physics in general, it's like you need to consider a lot of variables, right? So when making a cloth animation, you need to understand how the cloth behaves and animate that through. So all those things are built in Blender and helps us to make all those modifications very easily. So a lot of the things in Blender are abstracted, as we have talked about. So I want to see how far I can push this with vibe coding and see if I can vibe code my own Blender. I don't expect it to be as perfect as Blender. I think that is quite impossible to vibe code, and that's why the title also says you can't vibe code this. But I want to see how far I can push the modern day LLMs towards building this. So to do this, I'll be using Cloud Opus 5, which I think is what we have most access to. So instead of using Fable 5 or GPT Soul, I'll be using this because I feel like it is the most accessible for most of us, and also it's just a better model when it comes to coding. So I want to see how far I can push this. So the first off is I have to make my own prompt. I have to make a prompt which is really good. So I've just made a prompt which I think is quite simple. So I'm telling it, build me a very simple Blender-like 3D model application. Do not try to clone Blender at all, right? I don't want it to clone Blender because that would be a lot of work, and quite frankly, it's possible because Blender took a lot of time to build this over the years. So I don't think it's quite possible with the modern day vibe coding that we have, especially at this time. And I want it to be able to allow me to make a 3D cube and a plane and just render that, right? It might render to the CPU. That's all I care about. I don't really care about GPU accelerated rendering at current time, or I don't really care about texturing because those things are quite high level and I don't expect it to do all those things. So I just told it to create me a 3D viewport with a 3D grid and a camera that I can orbit around the scene, and that I can zoom in and out and pan, and I could add a cube and all those things, right? And I can also have some shortcuts to move in between. All those things I just wanted to do. So I'm just gonna copy this prompt and paste it on my fresh new session just paste that and see how it does things. So I'm expecting it to come up with a better way of making this because I don't really know what tech stack to use for this. I'm just showing it what I wanted to expect it from, so that it could just handle the tech stack for me. And I'm pretty sure this will take quite a bit of time because it has to think, it has to come up with better ways to ask me some questions. So we'll just wait for it to give me a response and see how it does. So far it has taken around 7.4 tokens, thousand. So that's, yeah, I mean, that's quite a lot. So, but we'll see how far it can go with this and create all these things. Okay, so now I think it's currently testing the server and it's trying to run it through the web. I think it's probably going to use like OpenGL. I think that's quite the better way of doing things in general. I think it's quite simpler. So let's see how this looks to be. So yeah, it's it's getting there for sure. It's creating the plane at the current moment, and it will need to add in some of our what we talked about, which is basically the lighting, the object manipulation. Those things need to be added for that to work. So I think it just added the cube right now, so it should be able to do more of the technical things as we talked about. And yeah, let's see how it goes. Okay, so far it is basically added the cube and some of the transformation matrices, and so we hope to see how it could actually. I think it also included some shortcuts, which I think will be quite beneficial. So there it goes. That's pretty much what we have. I'm gonna copy this and just run it. Okay, let's just see how I can go towards this. So I can rotate. That's good. Right? I could rotate this easily. That's a good sign. Okay. I can move with my mouse, and I could scale it by using the shortcuts. Okay, that's pretty cool. I can rotate it using R. So I've just pressed R, and it's just rotating it right now. Right? And I could delete this, but I don't know how I'll be able to add this. Probably not, because I don't think it has added any of the delete. Okay, it has actually. So I'm gonna delete this, add cube. That's good. That's actually good. Okay, so it's quite simple, right? It's very simple. It has added all these matrices with the transformations, the rotation, scale, translation, all those things, right? But I think that the main boss right now will be like the rendering, which would be quite a challenge. So here I'm gonna tell it to add a render. How can I render this? So I'm gonna ask it to, I want you to enable me to render this cube, right? I want a render button that adds lighting to the cube. This is the main challenge right now, right? This requires a lot of work towards doing this. So Let's see how much of a token we have taken so far. So not much because it's a fresh new it's a fresh one. So I think, I don't know why, but I'm getting a failure. So it says request failed. Is that asking too much? Hopefully not. Yeah, let's just wait for this to see what it shows up. Or maybe I'll just need to cancel or refresh the whole thing. Okay, I think it still failed. I'm gonna refresh the whole thing. Okay, please. Okay. Okay, so this is gonna require a lot of thinking because it has to come up with a way that could help me render this. And rendering in general is quite iterative work because you need to be able to have the right lighting information and depending on the cube size as well. So this is something you can do in Blender just by moving the light object. But in this case, I don't want to be able to move the light object because that also requires a lot of work. And I think it will be quite inefficient to ask Claude to do that. So I'll just ask it to make me a fixed light. So that, I think that's probably what it's going to do. So it's just going to have a fixed lighting and it will just render it when I tell it to render from there. I don't think it'll add the lighting to the viewport because that would be quite expensive to render all this and web especially. So yeah, we'll see how it renders this. Probably to use like 3JS's mapping or those type of things and try to render that. So I think this will take a bit of time and a bit of token. So we'll come back to this after a while. So we'll see how it shows up. Okay, so I think so far it has added the viewport and also added the save PNG, so we can actually save this. That's actually interesting. I didn't tell it to do that. I just told it to render it and show me in a window. So that's quite interesting the way it has done things. Yeah, I think it's not gonna render it with a with proper lighting in this case. I think it's just going to render based on the scaling and the basically the matrices which we have, like the scaling and rotating. I don't think it's gonna have the lighting as well. So that's one thing that kind of worries me right now, is the lighting might not be that good because the lighting requires it to be quite flexible when I'm about to render it. So we'll just see how that goes up around, and just we'll wait for it for a while and see how it does it things. We could actually make this with a cube or with other, we could actually make this with a donut or other forms, but to just make it simpler enough, I'm gonna make it work with a cube because I feel like that just is way simpler, right, in general. So just added the lighting, so say the lighting is balanced but the shadows falls behind the cube where you can actually see, so it's gonna orient it in a way. Okay, do your thing. So we'll just wait for this to run for a while and come back to it. So far it has run around 8,500 tokens. That is not that bad, to be honest. That's not that bad. just to add lighting, but hopefully that depends on how good the lighting is, right? In general, that's what matters at the moment. So, okay, so we can see some things that I added the shadow, but the lighting is one thing I'm curious about. Still curious about how that does that. Okay, let's just wait for it for a while. I think it's about to finish up. So he's verifying the viewport. So I think that's just cleaning things up. And the funny thing here is it's used kind of similar shortcuts as Blender as well. So I kind of find that interesting because it's trying to replicate that very, very clearly. You can see that the color, the UI, very Blenderly like, right? So I kind of appreciate that because it knows what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I can move the cube. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm just going to move this cube. Yeah, let's see how it does things. Okay, so the design is finished. Has finished everything. That took like around the total of the rendering cost. All those things took around 15 minutes, right? It burned a lot of tokens, around like 12,000, I think. I'm not sure, but it did a lot of things, right? And also my computer is a bit warm, so that's kind of funny. Okay, so let's see. Let's just delete all of them now. Let me just add a cube, right? I'm just pretending this is Blender. Okay, cool. Okay, let me try to move this to here, and then I'm gonna try to rotate this, right? I'm just gonna press R and move it. Okay, let's have it like that. I'm gonna press enter. Simple, very, very simple. I'm gonna try to scale it as well. Press S and just scale it a bit. Maybe that's too big. Maybe that's, I think that's the same as before, but okay, something like that. That's a bit smaller. And then I'm gonna try to move it. I'm gonna press G and move it like that. Okay, well, what's happening? Okay, press enter. So it's technically like floating above, which is, okay, to be interesting how to render this. So very simple things, right? It should do all the transformation matrices, very simple. Yeah, so very simple stuff right here. So just shows you this cube. Let's see if I can add another cube. Okay, I can add another cube. Let's scale this a bit smaller and move it above, something like that. Okay, just, I don't know what this is gonna be. Maybe some sort of thing. And I can select each one of them and scale them as well. Again, let's just scale this a bit and move it a bit center. Okay, maybe that's an ornament, I'm not sure. Let's just work with this, right? So we have two cubes, another one is on top of it, right? Okay, the final moment here is, can we actually render this? And how would it look like? So I'm gonna press F12, so please press F12. Wait, I think that's function F12, right? Okay, F12 shows this. Okay, so that's quite interesting. I think this is a fixed render. It's not really an actual render. It's just has an understanding of where the light is, just rendered this. So this is the same case as I've said before. I don't think we're gonna really add a actual hardware rendering. So this is just a very simple software render. You can just save this and open it if you want to, right? So yeah, very simple stuff right here. And this took in total like 25 minutes. Burned a lot of tokens, right? I burned like, I don't know, 20,000 tokens. It was a lot of work just to do this. But I think in some form it was trying to replicate Blender, right? The design and all those things. So we can see that it burns a lot of tokens in general, and it's quite a lot of work to do all these things. And also I think it was also trying to replicate Blender and almost everywhere, like the shortcuts, the UI. Right, I mean, that's not the focus, but I think I also tried to do all those things, which is, I think, this is good for like 25 minutes of work, because coding this all by ourselves would be a lot of work if we think about it. So it kind of did like, it kind of did like 5% of Blender, or even less than that, 3%, right? Because Blender has a lot of things going for it. So this is not to say that you can't really do your own vibe-coded Blender. You can get as close. I mean, if you take your time and all those tokens, you can burn all those tokens, and probably it will take you like weeks, months to build an actual Blender clone. But even after doing that, I don't think it will be the same as the actual Blender that we have, because that's required a lot of expertise, a lot of domain expertise, all those things, right? To get it just right. So I think it's easier to make something that works for you, but it's harder to make something that is as good as Blender in general. So yeah, this was a fun experiment, and be sure to stay tuned. I'll be working with other, I'll be seeing if we can also work with other softwares. So be sure to subscribe and press on that bell icon and like the video if you liked it, or dislike it, I don't know. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be doing more of these videos and trying to be more consistent. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.